What is up, everyone? This is Kaz, and today we're going to be talking about Path of Exile. As you can see, it's an ARPG of sorts, but what we're going to dive into today is how it's different from all the other ARPGs that are out there. How is it different from Diablo 3? How is it different from... honestly, I can't think of another ARPG right now. And I think that's why the developers ended up making Path of Exile. It was just the fact that there are so few games in this kind of genre, in this area of study, or not study, but this area of gaming. Path of Exile, originally released October 23rd, 2013. Yes, it has been around for some time. It has been under development since then as well. Now, originally, the game had 4 acts, just like the Diablo games, that it kind of seems to model itself after. But recently, and when I say recently, I mean about a year ago, they have expanded the game to a massive 10 acts. I'll kind of show you, same waypoint system, but you have a part 1, 5 acts, and a part 2 with another 5 acts. There's an epilogue that's a town and some other stuff for end-game content. Don't worry about that yet. The original developers, Grinding Gear Games, featured designers Chris Wilson, programmer Jonathan Rogers, artists Eric Olson, and writers Nick Jones, Edwin McRae, and Brian Weissman. There were 2 composers, Audio Hutchings and Camille Orman-Janowski, that kind of made the original core team. However, GGG, Grinding Gear Games, has recently been acquired by Tencent. Now, there's been a lot of concern for the game's future. Oh, they're gonna mess this up, they're gonna mess that up, oh, woe is me. Tencent has stated that they're not intending to interfere with the development of the game. We don't know how that's going to go. We'll play it by ear. As I move to character selection, there's basic modes of the game. You have your standard mode of the game. You have your hardcore, which is basically if you get killed in hardcore, you become a standard character, similar to Diablo 3. You have your challenge leagues, or leagues, which are basically the equivalent of seasons in Diablo 3. These are timed sections where you can go in and play. There's something special about the league sometimes. That could be an added feature, an added bonus, some kind of goal that you're working with. And you have your regular incursion and a hardcore incursion mode as well. For all these modes, you also have what's called solo self-found, which is very challenging, very interesting, and very, how should I say this? Very lonely, I guess. I think it allows you to chat with everyone else, but you cannot trade with anyone. So you are working with everything that you find out in the wild, that you have earned from quest rewards, from killing people, and all that kind of stuff. You cannot trade with other people for specific things to fill in the parts of your build. Alright? Come back here. Oh, sorry. Moved too fast. So initially, players have 6 character classes that they can choose from. We have the Templar.
You swore sinew and soul to serve God and the Order of the Templar.
We have the Shadow.
You were born with quickness of body and sharpness of mind. How have you paid for these gifts?
We have a Marauder.
Do you think you are savage enough to face the land of the damned, Marauder? We offered you
And we
truth.
have a Ranger.
Swift and silent, you stole the bounty of others. A crow that plunders our crops.
We have a Duelist.
You were born to be swift and strong. What did you do with your gifts, duelist? You squandered them on self-indulgence.
Finally, we have a Witch.
Why do the keen of mind seek to satiate their curiosity in darkness and depravity? Innocence is
So basically what you have is kind of a magic tank, a paladin type, a Shadow's kind of a rogue type, a thief type, Marauder's your barbarian class. Ranger is going to be your ranger, ranged arrows, bows and arrows, stuff like that, sentry guns. Duelist is kind of like a fancy sword wielding type melee class, and then you have your Witch, which is all of your magic is in your Witch. Towards the end of Act 3, players will unlock a 7th class called the Scion.
A scion is perfection in mind, body, and grace. The crowning glory of our civilization, offering us hope.
Anyway, the Scion is basically the culmination of all of these classes all together. When we start talking about the passive tree, the other classes kind of start from one location and branch outwards towards the outside of the tree. The Scion actually starts in the middle of where all these classes meet and has the ability to branch into any of the trees. So we'll take a look at passive trees. I'm playing a Marauder right now, so you can see my starting location is here. And I've kind of branched out into this location, kind of taken over the bottom side as well. Other starting class locations are located here, 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 and here. The Scion obviously starts in the middle, has some Scion-specific attributes that they can choose from, but they of course have the ability to go to any of the other areas. This passive tree is massive. It's insane. It has a total of 1,325 combinations, possible passive skills. Now, if you think of this as basically just remember that it's passive and think of it kind of more like Diablo's 3 Paragon system, then you're not going to be as overwhelmed. None of the things in here will affect what skills you use. It will just boost them. None of the things in here will alter your skills in any way other than to speed them up or provide them more damage. For an example, if you take a look at the starting, you have increased life and armor. And then you have Warrior's Blood, life regeneration, strength, added strength and dex, stuff like that. Jewels will do a little bit more modification. You have increased fire damage, additional projectiles, stuff like that. But these are all, again, to increase your passive system within the game. Now, how do you control what skills you're using? You're probably asking. Well, the skills are actually done differently in Path of Exile. The way skills are done is each piece of gear you have has sockets in it. Your sockets contain gem skills, or skill gems, which will allow you the opportunity to put skill gems in, and that gives you the ability to use that skill. There are a lot of skills that you can choose from, and then there are skill gem modifier classes, or modifiers, like the cast when damage taken support will automatically cast the skill when you have taken damage. Overall, there are a total of 313 possible skill gems in the game. Any class can use any gem as long as they meet the attribute requirements for it. There are only 108 skill gem modifiers, so these are the support gems like multi-strike support, ancestral call support. So by definition, you're supposed to be linking a skill gem to a support gem. The game does not prevent you from linking a skill gem to a skill gem. I don't know if I can find an example of that here. Oh, there you go. This is a skill gem, Molten Shell, and it's linked to Summon Stone Golem. There's no restriction saying that you cannot do that. Now, I probably did my math wrong, but given the number of 313 possible skill gems and the idea that you can link up to a potential of 6 gems together, this amounts to somewhere around 328,755 possible skills to play around with in this game. So a lot of them to play around with, right? Now, the last thing I'm going to kind of go over in Path of Exile is a lot of people have problems with this, and I'm not really sure why. There is no currency in Path of Exile. I mean, there is currency. We use certain things to trade, but there's no one standard gold standard. There's no gold. There's no silver or anything like that. What we end up trading with is what we call currency orbs or items. And what these are just orbs, chisels, prisms, baubles, stones, all kinds of various things. A lot of them are orbs. But what these things are basically modifiers. These allow you to upgrade normal items to magic items, upgrade normal items to rare items, upgrade a normal to a random, enchant magic items with new random properties, change the color sockets of an item, modify the number of sockets on an item, or the links on an item, stuff like that. These we use as currency in the game instead. Now, once you hit endgame, once you hit Act 10, and start really playing with other characters and start working on your build, you're going to find that most people kind of tend to stick with Chaos Orbs. This is kind of the de facto standard right now for trading. As you move higher, slightly higher into that, into more of the advanced maps, then you're going to be working with Exalted Orbs, which I don't think I have one at the moment. No, I don't. But yeah, you'll start moving with Exalted Orbs. So after 10 acts, what you end up going to is Endgame. And Endgame is done pretty interestingly. Diablo 3's Endgame was centered around the Greater Rift system, where you kind of moved up in Greater Rifts and tried to go as high as you could go, which is really great. I like that system. In Path of Exile, however, what you end up doing is discovering this idea called maps. Maps will start dropping probably towards the beginning or middle of Act 9. They are basically items. And what they do is they allow you to use them in a map device. I'm going to show you one right here. They allow you to use them in a map device, which will spawn 6 portals. You can enter the portal 6 times into that map and kill as much crap as you can in that map. Some maps have a boss. Some maps don't have a boss. Some maps have certain special attributes to it, and some don't. The way the maps are done is, and I thought this was ingenious. I'm going to show you an example here. We're going to take a regular beach map, right? This map actually counts as an item, as a piece of equipment. So you can actually put it in here, and you can use any of your alterations on it. So this beach map, I can right-click and use an Orb of Alchemy on it and make it a rare map. Now, this area has increased monster variety, 17% more monster life. Monsters cannot be stunned. Monsters deal 58% additional damage as fire, and monsters also gain a frenzy charge on hit. Definitely making this map a little bit more interesting. Now, why would you want to do this instead of just kind of rolling through it? Well, it adds variety to it, but it also improves your item quantity, item rarity, and allows you to bid for better drops. As you kind of go through, you'll notice that there are a lot of different types of maps. So you have Tier 1, you have 4 sets. Tier 2s, you have a different number. Tier 3s, Tier 4s, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. How this is generated is by looking at your atlas. From your atlas, what you're going to see is you start from the 4 corners: dungeon map, graveyard map, lookout map, and beach map. And as you kind of start mapping, as you can see I've just started on this mapping system, you will fill in this atlas and move towards the center. Now, you're probably wondering about these starry filters. There's these starry filters that kind of show up, and then later on there's another kind of overhead thing that kind of shows up and, you know, puts itself on top of certain map points on the atlas. What these are is there's something called I don't know if it's the elder or the map person or whatever, but basically he can alter those maps from his point of view. So he'll make the enemies stronger from his end as well as what kind of attribute you have on the map itself. Eventually you'll find this guy who's called the Shaper, actually, and there's a huge boss fight with the Shaper, and it's like really endgame stuff that I haven't gotten to yet. But yeah, we'll talk about that once I get there. Oops, I don't want to edit my hangout. So that's basically Path of Exile in a couple of minutes. I guess what we'll go into is how I feel about Path of Exile and my kind of feelings towards it. I will say, definitely coming from Diablo 3, Path of Exile was definitely a breath of fresh air. Now, what I hated the most about Diablo 3 was the fact that, okay, once you reach endgame during a season, you pick a build, whether it's the Hadrix gift or whether it's another set that you want to do. You complete that set, and then that's your meta, and then you play that meta, and that's it. In Path of Exile, there is no meta. I mean, there might be, but it is so difficult to just say that there's one build that is better and more efficient than any other build out there, that would convince every other player to only play that build. I mean, there is so many combinations of builds and things that you can play around with in here. I mean, I see, you know, with my character, I go around with an axe that shoots projectiles at people. I've seen things from rings of fire that completely decimate things, to arrows raining from the sky, to, you know, just all kinds of things. Arc lightning that arcs from one enemy to another enemy. You know, shooting lightning bolts from your arrows. You know, just kind of levitating and leaving a path of fire. A lot of these skill combinations lead to so much that, you know, okay, there's leagues, and the leagues last for 3 months, a lot longer than seasons do, but there's so much that you can play around with, and there's so much more content in Path of Exile that comparatively from Path of Exile to Diablo 3, Diablo 3 looks like it kind of just sets you up with 4 acts and then says, go at greater rifts and see how far you can go. Whereas Path of Exile feels a little bit more like, hey, I actually have an epic storyline that I want to tell, and then at the end of that, okay, I realize that you wanted more. Here's some maps and a huge atlas that, you know, is going to take you even more time to accomplish. And now with the incursion system, which adds on even more content that I haven't actually been able to go through and figure out how to use, you know, it just feels like there's so much more to do in Path of Exile than Diablo 3. Unfortunately, there's a downside to that. That means that the learning curve for Path of Exile is very steep. I honestly speaking, I don't think I've met a game with a steeper learning curve than Path of Exile, with one exception, and that exception would be EVE Online. But yes, the learning curve is very intense. You have to know right off the bat how to link your skills, what does that mean, how to get your items, attributes and everything figured out before Act 5. Because I'm going to give you a little spoiler here, and the very end of Act 5, something happens and your stats are severely like messed up. After that, you know, rebuild yourself up again, and then towards the end of the game, you reach another point where your stats are messed up, and then that sets you up for endgame. But I mean, the way that Path of Exile kind of leads you through all that, the way that it brings you through all that, it, you know, shows you how to get everything done, how the basics work, but also leaves you at a point and lets you figure out how you want to make it work. So while it's very easy to understand what's going on, it's also very difficult to find a build that works well. And I think that's one of the reasons why the meta does not exist in Path of Exile, and why the meta is so broken, is because there's so many different combinations, and all these combinations, if done correctly, can work, that there cannot be a true meta, which is one of the biggest things I love about this game. Outside of that, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about. I mean, there's 10 acts. Each one of these acts has a kind of a different settings, kind of a different location. In part 2, you do revisit some of the locations. There are newer locations, but you basically revisit the same 5 locations, and you know, continue your fight with gods and, you know, bad guys and whatnot. The story is great. The story is amazing. Overall, the one complaint I have about this game is that it takes too much of my time away from me. The fact that I've played 3 full characters to Act 10. I've created many more characters who have not even made it to Act 10. shows. I think it shows a lot for this game. I think there are a lot of opportunities for this game in the future, especially if they continue to build this game. And I hope that other developers will use Path of Exile as kind of a base, or kind of as an example to base their games off of. All right, stop creating games where there's a meta, and by the time that everyone has the meta, everyone's playing the same game. No one has any uniqueness or difficulty or differentiating factors, right? More creators out there need to create more games like Path of Exile where there is no meta, where the meta cannot be created, and allow for this kind of creativity. I feel like a lot of the people who are successful on YouTube because of Path of Exile are successful because of the fact that there is no meta. So, but anyway, that's just my 2 cents on Path of Exile. I know this is a video that I have been talking about doing for a long time, and it has taken me a long time to be able to put all of this information together. And even saying so, I'm not happy with how this all information kind of fell together. I feel like there's a lot more that I could have done, but I am preventing other videos from getting made by being such a perfectionist on this video, so I'm kind of just going to leave this video where it is. Please, please, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification icon, do all the YouTube stuff that you're supposed to do as a subscriber, and let me know in the comments what you think about Path of Exile. If there's any builds that you're looking for or anything like that, let me know. I'm going to be making another build for the Nagamahu's Marauder Axe. This is not the standard one that you will find if you go to the forums. This one's a hybrid between the Undeniable Juggernaut and the Nagamahu's Axe. That will be coming up shortly, hopefully by the end of this week. And then I will have the beginnings of a Ranger Volley build. Or, sorry, not Volley. Ranger Rain of Fire build. That I will start to give you guys a little bit of sneak peek into what I'm working on with that towards the end of next week. Alright, this is Kaz signing out. I'll see y'all next time.